Okay. We are. Here we go. We are Daf Chaf Vav Amar Aleph, in the middle of the sugya of Isaac Mitzvah, Pater Min Mitzvah. Interesting, though, we've been talking about it for the whole page. We haven't mentioned the words once in the Gemara. What? Isaac Mitzvah, Pater Mitzvah. All right. I only noticed that today when we actually said the words. But we did the whole sugya so far. Chavei, we saw the sources, and no one did. I don't think maybe we did say it. At the very beginning of it. Did we? Oh, we did say it. I'm sorry. No, the Gemara did say it on the bottom of Chavei. The Gemara said, "Isaac Mitzvah, Pater Mitzvah, Me'acha." We did mention it. Okay. I thought we did, but we did. Okay, so scratch that. Here's Evan. Evan's on. Okay. So we're in the sugya of Isaac Mitzvah, Pater Mitzvah. We've been discussing Shluchei Mitzvah. That's how we started with the sugya, and now we're been to. We brought two sources for Isaac Mitzvah, Pater Mitzvah, either from Kriya Shema or from Pesach Sheni. And the Gemara made a tzricha, so we need both. Then we said 4 dinim from Rabbi Abba Bar Zav in the name of Rav. He spoke about an Ovel and a Mitzdayer and Chasen, and 2 about Ovel, Mitzdayer and Chasen. Okay, so we'll continue on the bottom of Chavei Amid Beis. We'll start with the 2 lines up from the bottom of Chavei Amid Beis with the Brisa. Tana Rabbanan. Chasan v'ashashvinan v'chol b'nei achupa peturin min atfilin u'min atfilin v'chayavim b'kriya shema. Okay. Mishum Reb Shilo amru chasan pater v'ashashvinan v'chol b'nei achupa chayavim. So Rashi is sort of like, hey, 1 second. If like Mamanashach, like why are we only pater from some things and not from everything? So Rashi actually says that these Tanaim don't hold up the rule of Isaac Mitzvah Pater Mitzvah. Rashi on the top it says, "Pater me kriyishma the tarvish abnei chuppah chayavim v'laslu lahani tanoi ha'isuk mitzvah pater ben mitzvah." Aye. So if you don't hold that, so why are they pater from tefillin and tefillah? So he says Rashi says, that they're paturim from tefillah because that needs a lot of kavanah and they're busy. They're having the party. Tefillin, he says, because it was shchichi shechrus samela and kalas roish. So it wasn't a place. One thing I see from here is that they knew how to have a party. They knew what they were doing. Things haven't changed much. I don't know. You know what I mean? Shabbat brachas. Chasana maybe. This is Shabbat brachas. Oh, this is Shabbat brachas? Yeah, ganze Shabbat brachas. Sheshavinu chvanim paturim. Yeah, this isn't just one night. Okay. Others argue the mitzvah has a different mahalach here that it is outside the mitzvah. Okay. Tanya. Let's go back. We learned in a brace. Chananya ben Akavia. He says, "Koisvei svarim, tefillin mezuzos. It's stam. You write sefer Torah tefillin mezuzos. So hein those the scribes, the tagrein, the salesmen, the tagri tagrein. Right, so there's the middlemen and the sales and the storefronts. Anybody who's Isaac Malach Shemaim, Rashi, the Gemara says last few mechet chelas, including people who sell tzitzis. Chelas is just the way we call tzitzis. Peturmi Krishma b'natfilah and Mikol Mitzamers b'Teira. L'kayim divrei Rav Yisrael Gilishay Rav Yisrael L'Emer ha'Isaac b'Mitzvah Pater min ha'Mitzvah. Now, I'll be honest with you, if my cipher wasn't keeping mitzvahs, then I wasn't going to buy on that from him. What's the part here? So the Carbon Asal throws in on the bottom of the rush. He says, the point of Avada, not always pater. The point is that if someone came to them, the buyer came, or at the time the buyer came, he needed to do a mitzvah, and this is his only time to buy. Right? You have to sit and write him a stamp. Right? If it was such a matzah where the only time you could sell and the only time you could buy was now, so then Isaac Mitzvah is part of a mitzvah. Right? The chiddush here in Isaac Mitzvah is a big chiddush because generally it's Isaac when you're Isaac in your own mitzvah, you're part from a mitzvah. But here you're being Isaac and giving somebody else a mitzvah, and that's also part you from mitzvah. That's the added chiddush here of Rabbi Yosi. Isaac Mitzvah part of a mitzvah. I'm sorry. I don't know if we don't. Yeah. I didn't look it up. I don't know why we wouldn't. It seems like we would. Yeah. I mean, in a situation where I mean, the way the nusach he uses, he graded that the Carbon Asal asks a stira in Rabbi Chanan ben Akasha because in the Yushalmi he says that Chanan ben Akash says that the Sefer Stam have to be mafsik for Kriya Shema and Tefillah. So it's a stira. So it's not a stira. It's kan be'efshar, like we have a lot of times we say this rule when it's efshar al liyasis al de'echem. When somebody else can do it for you, so then avadi you have to continue doing the you do continue to do. But it's efshar liyasis al de'echem. Nobody else can do it. So then you're mechuyev to do it for them. So if you're in a situation where a guy comes to and you want to run out to mincha, and you have a guy says, "Listen, this is I'm in from." And I need to buy a pair of tefillin. All right, you got to sell him a pair of tefillin, and you have to buy him a pair of tefillin if you need it. Whatever the situation would call for, that's what you have to do.
It's a full day though to write a pair of tefillin.
Okay, so if the guy calls an order,
it
could take 6 months. Right. But
it doesn't say Sefer Torah.
It says Svarim, Sefer Torah.
Yeah, so a year.
If you're the only sefer in town and the town needs a sefer Torah, so it could be you'd have to sit and write until you're done. Okay. Torah Rabban. Holchei drachim. No, back to Sukkah. Holchei drachim. If you're traveling, b'yom during the day, you patur min Sukkah b'yom. V'chayim b'layla, because you have to find the Sukkah at night. Holchei drachim b'layla. If you're traveling at night, patur min Sukkah b'layla. V'chayim b'yom, but you're chayav by the day. Now, who are we talking about over here? What kind of holchei drachim are we talking about? So Rashi says the last wide line on the top. Holchei drachim p'turim ben hasukkah b'yom. Dichsiv. He first tells us what the source is. B'sukkah's teishu, and the rule is teishu ke'ein yeshivas beisai. You dwell in the sukkah the way you would dwell at home. Well, you don't stay home all day. It says, just like all year, you would go out, you leave your house if you had to go on business, for business. So the days of Yom Chag, which are not Yom Tov, the Torah does not prevent you from leaving. You're allowed to leave your house. So does Rashi mean you can only go for a schayra? That's the only time you would have a tour? Maybe. Do you have to build a sukkah, or do you have to sit in a sukkah if you go to Six Flags, right? Or you're on some random trail somewhere? You do that too. So does that exempt you from sukkah, or is it only if you're going b'schayra? So that's a machlokes. Which holchei drachim are patur from a sukkah? Now, what about a holchei l'dvar mitzvah? What if you're going to do a mitzvah? Holchei l'dvar mitzvah. Peturim bein b'yayim ubein b'layim. So the chiddush here is, and this is what Tesis points out on Amar Aleph, where Rashi gets a shita from that. Even when you're not doing the mitzvah, you're patur from the sukkah, and that's where we're coming from here. Is holchin l'dvar mitzvah. You're patur even if you're only traveling by one of them. You're patur by both. Ki hadar chizav Rav Ravuna ki havu idly b'Shabbos devrigla. So on Shabbos of the Shabbos Chol Hamoed, whatever the Shabbos of Yom Tov would be, so they go to the Reish Kalusa. V'havugonu arachs of the surah. So they would hang out. They camp out on the banks of the river, and people say, "No, why don't you sleep in a sukkah? Amran nan shluchei mitzvah nan. We're going to do a mitzvah. Coming l'kabalas b'nei rabbi. We're coming to learn. Upeturin, and therefore were patur from sukkah and l'chari. They weren't traveling at that time. They were on their way, so they're patur from sukkah." The Brisa continues. Turn Rabbanon. Shomer ha'ir. So if you're a watchman, you're b'yayim. If your job was to watch the city by day, you put your min sukkah. B'yayim. B'chayim b'layla at night. You had to find the sukkah. Shomer ha'ir b'layla. If you're with the night patrol, so put your min sukkah b'layla. You're part of from sukkah at night. B'chayim b'yayim, and you are obligated to sit in sukkah by day. Shomer ha'ir. Bein b'yam bein b'layla. Then if you were the watchman and you had a 24-hour shift, so then you're part of min sukkah bein b'yam bein b'layla. Shaim regina supardesim. If you were watching the fields, peturim bein b'yam ubein b'layla, and that's because your job was a 24-hour job. You're always out there, so you don't have to come in to go sit in the sukkah to eat. You'd stay out there and do your job. Why don't we just make a sukkah there? The law of the sukkah also. Why don't you just make a sukkah? You guys are there anyway all day. You're probably sitting in some type of a hut. So make a sukkah So you can sit in the sukkah. Abaye Omar Teishu Kein Tadu. Now you got to listen to this. This is Mamish Chiddush. Teishu Kein Tadu. So what? Take a look at how Rashi explains it. Rashi says, this is about 10 lines down in the screen lines in Rashi. Kein Tadu. Kederech Shehu Dar Kol Hashana Bebeisai. The way you live in your house a whole year, his Kikasai Torah, the Torah requires Lahanyach Dirasai, to leave your home, the ladur kan v'sukkah. In mitaisav, with your beds, the klita shmishai, and your other stuff, the matzaisav, and your mattresses, and your mats, the zeni yachlavi and sham. But we're not going to require you to bring that stuff out to the fields. It's a big tircha. So here, teishu kain taduru is a tour, or we're saying because we're not going to matriach you to build the sukkah the way you should, mainly you're not chayiv in sukkah. But from Abaya, at least Abaya's holds that what does your sukkah have to look like? Your sukkah can't be a pop-up tent. If you're in a place where you can't have a sukkah that's a richtige sukkah with mats and beds and comforts of your home, then you're parted from sukkah. That's what Abaya holds. He's using Teishu Kein Taduru. So that if you can't perform Teishu Kein Taduru, if you can't make your sukkah the way your home is, then that's if you're in a matzah where you can't do that, then the Torah wasn't machayev you to have such a sukkah. It's a big chiddush. Right. He's saying that that's like the flip of Teishu Kein Taduru. I mean, he's using the din of Teishu Taduru to say that if you can't fulfill that, then you're not in a matzah of chiyuv.
Truth is, you can always fulfill it, but he's giving them a loophole of the teardrop.
Right, but he's saying, meaning, you're right, you could have put up a sukkah, but the sukkah you would put up is not a sukkah that you can fulfill your mitzvah with. That's a chiddush.
You schlep it, burn a wagon with a couple of babies, and schlep it there.
Right, but the Torah wasn't. My point I'm making is that he required to have a sukkah, you need to have that stuff in it.
Right.
If you don't have that sukkah, that stuff in it, you're not fulfilling the mitzvah of sukkah. That's what I'm saying is a big chiddush in Abaya. He's saying if you don't have that stuff, then you're not fulfilling the mitzvah of sukkah. So in a situation where you can't have that stuff, the Torah is not machayev you to have to schlep it there. But to say that that's the way you fulfill, that's to me, I was like wondering how come we don't, like, why don't we find this anywhere? And the Torah says because Rava argues. Rava says the reason why we're not machayev the shemrei pardesim to put up a sukkah, he says because pirza kair laganav. If you're going to put up a sukkah, then guess what? The Ganav is going to know exactly where you are. And then there goes your job. It's pointless to have you there. My benayu, what's the nafka between the two reasons? You can benayu to come into carry the peri. If you're not watching the fields, but if you have already bushels or you have piles, so you can put your sukkah next to the pile. So then, according to Rav, you'd be chayiv. Okay, we do pass like Rav and therefore we don't have that concept of a bayil. We don't take that chiddush of Teishu Kein Taduru of a bayil.
Nervous by folding tables. That wasn't
right.
You don't have that in your house. Some people do.
Okay, so the mission continued, and it said a chayla, and the aid of the chayla are parted from sukkah. So turn rabban. So we learned in the Brayso. Chayla she'amru. This chayla, what kind of chayla are we talking about over here? That we're exempting him and we're exempting the aides, people that are there to help him out. So the chayla she'amru lo chayla sheish be'sakana. Not only a chayla sheish be'sakana, that means a person in grave danger. Ela afilu chayla she'ein be'sakana. Even a chayla who's not in danger, but he's sick. He's going to make it. He's just sick. That's the case. Someone who has a fever, or you're the more than a headache. Somewhere where on Shabbos we allow you to take medicine. That means you're in a situation where you just have to lay down. You can't function. So that's and then it says afilu chashbein. Even if you just have your eyes are bothering you, afilu chashbein, you have a headache. A big chiddush. Not only are you parted from a sukkah, but the people who, if you need help, they're also parted from the sukkah. I was in Caesarea, and my eyes were bothering me. The hit Rabbi Yossi Beribi, the great Rabbi Yossi. Rashi says that's Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta. Ribi is a title. the great Baribi, the great Rabbi Yossi, he was Ma'at Elishan Ani from Mishamshai Chutz Sukkah that me and my Mashamashim didn't have to sleep in the sukkah. We didn't sleep in the sukkah. I don't know if they ate in the sukkah. I don't know, but they didn't sleep in the sukkah. Rav Lemigna Bekilta B'Sukkah. Rav permitted Rav Achabar to sleep in a kila, in a canopy in a sukkah. Rashi says it was over 10 tvachim and it was a flat roof. And because of Bucky were because of the bugs. He permitted in this. Now, I just go inside. Like, well, what are you doing in the sukkah? I'm saying, just, according to that, I'm saying, not. So why are you sleeping? Like, what's the point? If you're in an aisle in the sukkah, so you're not fulfilling the mitzvah sukkah, you couldn't make a leisha sukkah in there. So like, why are you doing that? So, I forgot who it was. I saw somebody says because there is a sheet who holds that you do fulfill your mitzvah in such a kila, and even we don't pass it like him. But he was saying, listen, I'm not sure if the nusach was so. You can at least you could be yaitz sukkah according to him. So you could do that. But look, I mean, I don't. If it sounds like though, if you got yitushim, you got bugs that are flying around in your sukkah and they're annoying. Well, look, you're potter from sukkah. You're mistar. Rava sharle l'Rav Acha bar Adam l'migna bar metalasa mishum sircha de gargishta. So there was a bad smell. This gargishta was something they put on the floors. It was used as a floor. Now. The Rush points out he must have been an Iraq. Maybe also says this also. No, he must have been a guest because you can't make a sukkah out of something that smells because and then pad yourself because it smells, right? That doesn't work. You can't do that. That's one option. So maybe he was just a guest. The other option is that he used something on the floor that doesn't smell, but when it gets wet, it smells. So he put some type of a lining down on his floor, and then it rained. And then it got smelly. So now, and he had to wait for it to dry. So that in the interim, being that he was mistar, he was part from sukkah. Okay. Rav says that if you're mitzvah, you're pater from sukkah. Now we mentioned before the mitzvah. There's it here. Who said it? Okay. Where was that? Mitzvah, actually, because of the heat. Someone said, I don't know where it was. Here, it's I don't remember. A kid's here. Okay, but there are different examples given of mitzvah. One of them was if it was too hot or too cold. Here we have examples of bugs. The Geis Ashri brings down that he says that the reason why we don't sleep, people were knowing not to sleep in the sukkah, was because they were scared of either being too cold, and therefore they had a dinner b'chayla she'ebay sakana. That was that's what he brings down. The Geis Ashri. Okay.
And it's too hot, you can get out.
Yeah, when we were sitting in sukkah and 1 o'clock.
Afraid when you got to get
right, we didn't go out. But I remember from my mitzvah in Yerushalayim. It was 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We were in a plastic sukkah. It was just plastic. There's 4 walls of plastic. It must have been over 100 degrees.
We were sitting with ice on our
Ice
heads.
melting. Right. So
the minute the sun just left, and we were in the shade.
Right.
It was totally
different. It was.
We didn't want to leave the sukkah.
I don't know. I mean, it's, maybe they
started eating there. We started eating.
It was cooler. I don't know. Okay. So the contract, the Gemara Hakarava says that mitzvah spotem in a sukkah v'anatnan. The Mishnah doesn't say that. The Mishnah says chaylin misham shem b'tum in a sukkah. Chayl in mitzvah alay. We're asking a dig on the Mishnah. Why did the Mishnah say that mitzvah spotem in a sukkah? Why is it only a chayla potter? It's much that a mitzvah is chayiv in a sukkah. So he says no. Ami chayla hu umisham b'tum in a sukkah. The dig is as follows. When you have a chayla, so there's a chiddush of a chayla that he and his shamashim are putter from a sukkah, but by mitzvah it's only hu putter misham shav loy. but the aids are not going to be potter from the sukkah. So like the Marvite. So you're allowed to eat outside the sukkah. So effectively, how much is that? Like what are you allowed to eat outside the sukkah? I'm Rav Yossi. Tarti oitlas bei, 2 or 3 eggs. That's eggs worth of bread. Okay, why 2 or 3? So the mitzvah Eisen says that that the shear of a suuda, we have machlekes tanaim if it's 3 or 4 eggs. Right, the kedei achilas press. How much is a press? A press is a half a loaf, and the loaf is either 3 size of 3 beitzim or 4 beitzim. So a sudas arai would be 1 bay or less. That's why he says 2 or 3, depending on those tanoim. That's how he learns this lashon of tarti oitlas bay. Rashi had a different girsa. Rashi's girsa was trei tlas, tarti tlas, which meant what you can get in 2 or 3 spoonfuls into your mouths, how much you can get in, which the Gemara is going to say later on. It's all about abeya. Okay, so that's the amount that is considered achilas aray. But lots of times that's enough to have like sudas keva. 2 or 3 beya, that's enough to fill. That could be a suda. That could be kaviyas. Elam Rabbaye kiditayim bei barav va'ayil lakala. It's the amount. If you worry that there's going to be a long shear, so the students, the talmidim, would grab something to eat before they went into shear. In case it would take too long, they wouldn't make it out in time for lunch. So kiditayim bei barav va'ayil lakala. And how much is that? It's a mole lugma. How much you can stuff into your mouth. So it's basically the size of a beya. There's a beya's worth of bread. Taisa says that when it comes to fruit, you can eat as much fruit as you want. Fruit. There's no kviyas. Kviyas, the fruit is always considered aray. It's never considered. Other Rishonim argue that Rush brings down lots of different shittas when it comes to this. Mamish, a whole bunch. Some hold fruit is even fruit you could be kiveh on, and fruit could be a problem. Others hold no, fruit's not an issue, but basar, things that you'd eat at a meal, that you have to machmer. That's considered a kviyas. Others hold it's only mezainis, so it's only pas. You have all the shittas, right? So, because sometimes you feel, if you go like to a Chinese meal, you can eat all shahakal, right? And you can't stop. So you don't have to go to a sukkah for that, right? So that's like the taina that the basar and stuff like that. You have to eat in the sukkah. Okay, turn up on. The Gemara continues. You're allowed to eat achilas arei out of the sukkah. The ein yishenim shiras arei achus sukkah, but you can't take a nap outside the sukkah. Amalei Abaye Elohad Tanya. I skip. I'm sorry. My timer. Why not? Because if you're going to take a nap, you may end up sleeping. So therefore, you can't even take a nap. So sleeping is more chamer than eating. By eating arei, we're not concerned if you're eating arei, you're going to end up eating a kviyas. But a sleep we are. Amalei Abaye Elohad Tanya Yoshin Adam Shinas Ari B'Tfilin Avalei Shinas Keva. Why is it that you're allowed to take a nap wearing your tefillin, but you're not allowed to take do a shinas keva on your tefillin? Like Hashem, then why aren't we concerned that you're going to fall? You're going to sleep longer. So Rav Yosef, Rav Eli, he says, it's if you hired someone to, you told someone to wake you up. So Masav Misharsha, yeah, but that guy may also fall asleep. Everyone said nap time. So say, you wake me up in 5 minutes. Yeah, but who's going to wake him up? You're right. Sleeping aray, even with your tefillin on, is a problem unless you put your head between your legs. That's how you're sleeping, because you're not going to fall asleep. You can't sleep too long like that. Rava Amar and Kavalashina. It's not true. He says there's no kviyas to sleeping, and therefore, he wasn't chayish that maybe you're going to sleep too long. L'shem yirdam. That wasn't it, that you're going to end up sleeping. His issue is that the reason why he can't have a shinas aray outside the sukkah is because he's not machal between keva and aray. He can't sleep, period, outside the sukkah. That's all. Tani chada, yoshin adam tefillin shinas aray, avaloi shinas keva. So we have 3 different prices when it comes to wearing your tefillin. Again, the issue with tefillin, the pashas of the issue wearing tefillin is that why you have to have a guf naki with tefillin on. You have to have a clean body. And we're concerned that maybe you'll pass gas with your tefillin on, which you're not allowed to do. So, Tani Chad, we have 3 prices that seem to contradict each other. One says, Yashanadam betfilin shinas ari of shinas keva. You can sleep in your tefillin like shinas keva, shinas ari ben keva. Tani idach, another brayso says, bein keva ben ari, you can do both. And the other one says, loy keva loy ari, you can't do anything. So Mar explains, like kasha. If you're holding tefillin in your hand, you can't sleep at all. So if you're holding, you have your tefillin you're holding your tefillin. You took them off. You're not wearing your tefillin. You're walking with them. You're holding them. Mm-hmm. So then you can't sleep at all because you were scared you're going to drop them. So you can't. If you're holding your tefillin, you can't sleep. If you're wearing your tefillin, so then you can do a shiras arab and not a shiras keva. If you're sleeping them and they're next to you and you cover them, so then you can sleep with them. Then you can sleep shinas keva shinas arab. Because what else? You gotta sleep. All right. How much is a shinas arab? Good question. What's considered shinas arab? Tani Rami Bar Yechaskel to the Hilach Me'am. The amount of time it takes to walk 100 amas. Not so much. How much is 100 amas? All right, that's like 150 feet. 200 feet. That's nothing. We actually have a price that says something similar. The guy sleeping in his tefillin, but carry, and he saw carry a bunch of halachas about tefillin here. So now the issue is that you are dirty, so you shouldn't have your tefillin on. So use your klipa, your rituas to take off your tefillin. But don't grab onto the ktitza, the box, with your hand. You're actually allowed to take a shinas arai. You can take a nap in your tefillin. Shinas keva, become a shinas arai. So this is what we want to bring the brayso for. The hiluch me'am, the amount of time it takes to walk 100 hours. Amarav, new halach. Asar la'adam lishon b'yayim yoyz mishinas asos. You can't sleep during the day more than a horse nap. The kamashinas asus, and how much is that? She's the nishmi, 60 breaths. Now Rashi says, if you look at the Rashi, where to go? Oh no, not this one. I'm sorry. We'll go a little further. The on this. What is the share of Shita Nishmin? So the Be'er Halacha brings 3 shitas in the Mishnah. The Be'er Halacha brings 3 shitas. First shita is that it is 3 hours. Second shita is 30 minutes.
For 60 breaths of a horse is 3 hours?
Yeah, it's one shita. The Raya bring a Raya because the Arizal would sleep either 2 or 3 hours on Shabbos, and he definitely wouldn't sleep that long. If he doesn't kind this. They say it's not. Others say that he can't bring a Raya from that Arizal on Shabbos because on Shabbos you're allowed to sleep. It doesn't apply on Shabbos, it's halacha, because it's Shina. Shabbos stands for Shena b'Shabbos Tainug. So that's one shita. The second shita is a half an hour, and the third shita is 3 minutes. Those are the 3 shitas for the shita nishma. Now, Amar Abaye says Shinsei Demar. That's Rabbi Bar Nachmani, who raised him. That's who Mar is referring to. Was Kederav. He slept the same way Rav. And Rav slept the way Rebbe slept. And Rebbe slept the way David HaMelech slept. And David slept Kedusasya. The Susya Shita Nishmin. David HaMelech is a machlekes, it was by day or by night, but he wouldn't sleep more than 60 Nishmin at all. I mean, he would take naps during the day. That was it. And these other Tanaim or Amarayim did the same. Now Abaye says Havinayim, he would nap or he slept. The amount of time it takes to go from Pumbedisa to Bekuvi. Kari al Rabbi said to Abaye, how long will the lazy one sleep? When will you get up from your sleep? Now, how far was this distance? Like, how long was that? So Rashi says, it's 6 parsa. Okay. Now, first of all, Rabbi Kiva points out he has no idea what Rashi is referring to. He doesn't know this place that Rashi is talking about. He didn't find it. Okay, he quotes the Neder Yehuda, I think that says that. He didn't know what Rashi was, how he couldn't find it. Now, what is she's a parsa? A parsa is 4 mil. Okay, a mil. Let's say we'll say that a mil is 18 minutes to walk. A mil is 18 minutes. So 4 mil is 72 minutes. And the Rashi says this was 6 mil, 6 parsa, I'm sorry. It's 24 mil. So we're talking about over 7 hours. Okay? That's one shot. So if that's what Abaye was doing, he was sleeping for 7 hours. So we have to be talking about at night. Keep himself at night for 7 hours, right? So others, the Svasemes doesn't like. He says maybe there's a mistake here in Rashi, and it should say is shis biparsi, meaning I'm sorry, a shis. He said, what did he say? He said shisa biparsa, a sixth of a parsa. A sixth of a parsa is going to be about 12 minutes, right? So that's that's the other way to learn that. And if that was the case, and Abaye was taking a nap, and he was saying, during the day, and he was saying, when are you going to wake up? But what's his name? The Ali Rabbah brings a right from this that you see if Abaye took a nap during the day, and assuming this was longer than if you hold that Shis Parsi was, I'm sorry, Shis Nishman was 3 minutes, so you saw Abaye took a longer nap than that. So then you hold that, you see that this din of you can't take a nap during the day, it's only this Chasidus because Abaye didn't keep that. Okay. Turn about it. If you're going to go take a nap in the day, so if you want to take off your tefillin, you can take off your tefillin. If you want to leave them on, you can leave them on. But belayla, then you had to take them off and don't put them on. Did Reb Nassim? The Bachram, he says it's Bachram should always take off their tefillin, not leave them on. They should give them batuma because Rashi says they have irurim, and therefore they may end up seeing carry, and therefore you don't want to do that with your tefillin on. But it sounds like Rabbi Yossi holds that about carry is usher to put on tefillin, and if that was the case, we would pass like Rabbi Yossi because we always pass like Rabbi Yossi. But it doesn't seem like we do that. No, we're not talking about carry. We're not talking about kids. We're talking about married youngsters, newlyweds. So therefore, so we're concerned that they're going to end up having tashes with the tefillin on. So therefore, we tell them to take off your tefillin before you take it out. Turn about it. Shochach b'shamash mitase b'tefillin. The guy forgot, and he had his tefillin on, and he had tashes shamita. Any oiches leiber tefillin v'ketzitza ad sheyitel yodav. First, he should wash his hands and then take off his tefillin. Because the hands are busy. If they may touch them, if you should wash your hands first. Okay.
Why aren't they worried that when you have a short nap, with your tefillin on there, you're not going to pass gas as a longer nap? Not to worry about.
Why in a short nap? No.
Yeah.
I don't know. It seemed to be the.
That was the reason they asked it for a long
For
nap.
a long, correct. This was sorry. I don't know. Zak the Mishnah. Ma'isa. This is really a continuation of the previous Mishnah. We said the Mishnah continues. Ma'isa. I tell you a story. They gave Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai just the taste, so it wasn't much. And they brought Rabbi Yochanan some water and 2 dates. And they said to those bringing to them, "Hello, the sukkah. Let's bring it into the sukkah." So they didn't want to eat in this outside the sukkah. And when they gave it to Reb Tzaddik, he ate pachas mekabetza. Not lebimap. He held it in his hand. He ate it outside the sukkah. And he did not bench. So he didn't wash. We're talking about pas here, bread. He didn't wash on it. He took it in. He held it in a handkerchief, in a cloth. Didn't wash. He ate it outside the sukkah, and he didn't bench. Okay. We'll see that in a minute. I want to ask, what's going on over here? Ma'isa, Lister, you bring me a story to contradict the halacha you just told me. The Mishnah just said halacha that you're allowed to eat outside the sukkah, and then you bring me a story with the Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai and Rabbi Gamliel who wouldn't eat outside the sukkah. So the Ma'isa Lister says now you should. It's missing some words. It should say like this: if you want to be machmir, you're allowed to be machmir. But let's be and it's not considered gaiva. You have to be very concerned when you're doing chumras. You're not allowed to do chumras in public because it's yuara. It's you look like a balgaiva. So the Mishnah is giving you a heter that if you want to be machmer in this, you're allowed to be. My tsunami, and it brought us a story of Rabbi Yechim Tzaki, Lutem as a Davsha, Rabbi Gemul, Shenk Zavis, the Shamayim, Go Amru, Alu Musuka, Shasar Bizadik, Eichel make a Betza, the Lava Ochel, the Suka, like Birach Achrov. Now, the Gemara makes a diak, Habik Kabetza, if it would be a Kabetza, Ba'isaka. That sounds like you would need a sukkah, because he said he only ate less Kabetza. Sounds like if you'd be eating a beitza, then you'd have to go to the sukkah. This is a contradiction to Rabbi Yosef Rabbi, who said that having a chikvul, having a kabetza, would be allowed, is considered arai. So the Gemara says, no, dilma pachmi kabetza, you made the wrong diak. Really, arai for sukkah is considered a kabetza. Delma, so why was he only eating less than a kabetza? Because on less than a kabetza, netilu bracha, but you don't have to wash, and you didn't have to make a bracha achrei, you don't have to bench, because you hold that you don't. We hold it on a kazayas, you have to bench. But there's another sheet that holds that you have to eat a kabetza v'chalta v'savat. You need to have an achil that has a sviyah to it. But hakabetza by netilu bracha. But if you had a kabetza, then you'd have to wash, and you would have to make a berachas hamazon. But he wasn't referring to sukkah. For sukkah and achanami, it's only a kabetza that you have to be worried about. Less than a kabetza wouldn't be an issue. All right. Shkar Rabbi say a good nacht.